let's talk about beer in general. So you are a certified, literally certified beer expert. So you're something called a Cicerone, which, so people who go to fancy restaurants, they may be aware of the job title sommelier, which is somebody who is a specialist in wine tasting. Um, and the equivalent in the beer world is a Cicerone. And I've only read about this in The Economist. So I don't know a huge amount about Cicerones, but I know that you are a level 2 Cicerone. So maybe you can tell us a bit about that. And another big credential, other than your many years, you have about a decade of experience working in brewing, but you also have studied microbiology at the Siebel Institute in Montreal. So tell us a bit about how somebody becomes as expert at beer as you, and what these kinds of certifications like the Cicerone mean, and why it would be useful to study microbiology as a brewer.
Yeah, so obviously I'm obsessed with the art of brewing. In addition to the art of brewing, absolutely obsessed with science. So a Cicerone, this was back before I stepped into full-time production mode. I worked at sales for several companies. One of these companies allowed us to study to be a Cicerone through the Cicerone program. And we had a pretty intense 2 weeks studying that. Level 1 is certified beer server. So you can actually take that online fairly quickly. It's still very hard. So you definitely need to study for it. Level 2 is exponentially harder than that. So I believe, from what I remember, it's about a 5 to 6 hour test. There's a tasting.
A 5 to 6 hour test. Do you get to do you
I
get a
hope I'm
bathroom
right
break?
about that, but I'm trying to remember because it's so long ago.
You were drinking at the time.
There was a sensory portion, which didn't take
Oh,
too much
really?
time. Yeah, sensory
Okay,
portion.
so level 2 is obviously in person. You kind of it kind of was
Yeah,
implied by you mentioning that level 1 could be done online, and then yeah, so if there's a sensory portion, then that must be done in person.
yep.
Um, that's cool.
And then there's like a 3 hour written portion. So maybe it's more like 4 to 5 hours.
It doesn't matter. We're getting the rough
But
idea.
yeah, anyways. Yeah, so that was really hard. I found that there's some off flavors that I just do not have the right threshold for it. So I had to take the test twice because of the sensory portion.
Oh, really?
So
So you
yeah,
aced the written part, but the sensory part was hard. And
yeah,
that's
correct.
amazing because
Yep.
you obviously assuming that you did this certification relatively recently, you already would have had a decade of experience professionally tasting beers. So that really says something about this taste.
No, I probably had. I was in the industry for probably 3 years by then. So this is,
Okay.
like I said, this is pretty far back ago. But I just, some people just don't have a really high threshold for things, and I don't like there was like one or two things that I just had struggled picking up. So, anyways, and that so I got that, which I was really excited about. Beyond level 2, there's also advanced Cicerone, and then there's master Cicerone. Advanced is also exponentially harder than level 2.
Oh,
So, and then after advanced Cicerone, that's exponentially harder than that. So I have nothing but the most respect for not not only the people taking level 1 and 2, but seeing how I failed the first time on getting Cicerone level 2, how hard and dedicated you have to be to achieve advanced Cicerone and
yeah.
to get the master Cicerone, which is, I think there's only a handful of people in the world that have master
That
Cicerone.
must have been what I was reading about in The Economist. It's like dozens of people worldwide that
Yeah,
have that. Yeah, that's wild. And so there must obviously be some kind of, maybe not obviously, there might be, I suspect, a strong like biological component to being able to do this. Like my sister, for example, she could just taste way more stuff than me. I've never been a great taster, and I think we actually looked into this growing up. There's like a density of taste receptors on your tongue, and people have different densities, and so you can get like a little. They have these little. They're like the size of like a Cheerio, a flat piece of paper that looks like a little Cheerio. You can put that on your tongue, and you can count how many taste receptors are in that little Cheerio looking circle thing.
Really?
And yeah, and that gives you a sense of how many taste receptors you have on your tongue. And some people have way more than others.
That's fascinating. I I did not know about that.
Yeah.
Start handing those out.
Yeah, you could. You could look that up, and they definitely it's something you can buy. It could be kind of an interesting, actually, if people are coming by and doing a tasting at the brewery. You could have these there, and because it just takes like a minute to count, and then it gives you a sense. There's like super tasters, which my sister is because she has a crazy number of taste receptors, and I'm like, I can't remember what the word is for like a sub taster. I'm like deficient.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife is the same way. Um,
She's a
she's
super
just
taster.
yeah, super taster.
Yeah,
She's
you'll have to
really
do the
good.
test to see whether it's experience or biology in her case.
Yeah,